Welcome to the Lorehounds One-Shot Podcasts. We're the Lorehounds, your guides to the cold terror of space. I'm David, and this is our coverage of the 2024 movie Alien Romulus, the seventh film in the Alien franchise, assuming that you're counting Prometheus and Covenant in that list as well. This one-shot has been part of our special coverage of all things Alien. We did a two-part podcast about the original 1979 movie, and one was a special crossover episode with Elysia from every single sci-fi film ever. Definitely go check out that podcast. It's great. I also did two subscriber bonus podcasts where I analyzed the trailers for Romulus. The last podcast in this series will be community reactions to the movie, where I speak with some of the Lorehounds extended community for their reactions to the film. Look for that in the coming weeks. With me for this podcast is my fellow Lorehounds host, Elysia, and co-hosts Jean Jr. and Ron Dawson. We're going to start off with our spoiler-free hot takes. We'll cover some production details, and then we're going to take a short break, after which we'll get into a detailed, spoiler-filled discussion about the movie. This is your spoiler warning for the whole of the Alien franchise. We talk about all the films and some video game content. We'll end with our power rankings for all of the movies, and then listener feedback has been woven into the outline. So if you send in a comment, listen for that as part of the conversation. As always, you can send emails to lorehounds@thelorehounds.com or head over to our website, and there you can either use the voicemail feature or the contact form. Also, we'd like to invite you to check out our Discord server. This is free and open to everyone. It's a great place to talk about TV, movies, books, music with other like-minded folks from all over the world. If you're enjoying this and are interested in supporting the Lorehounds community, check us out on Supercast or Patreon. Supercast is like Patreon, but it's built a little bit better for podcasters. Subscribers on either platform get early and ad-free access to all of our content, and then a bunch of bonus benefits like Second Breakfast and our movie club called Elevensies. Links for everything are in the show notes below. Lastly, I'll have some notes about our upcoming programming schedule at the very end of the podcast, so stick around if you're curious about what we've got going on and what we're going to be covering in the next couple of months. Quick note, Elysia and Jean are going to be covering Agatha full-time, and then Elysia is going to be covering Dune Prophecy with me starting in November. With all of that out of the way, let's get into our conversation with Elysia, Jean, and Ron. All right, welcome everybody. Ron, it's good to see you. It's been a minute. How have you been?
Yeah, I've been busy, but it's good to be back.
Cool. Yeah, I figured you've been out and about. You've been traveling a lot.
Yeah, and I'm traveling again next week for work and lots of going out at work, but it's all good. Been doing my YouTube show. That's doing that again, so that's been a little bit busy. So, but it's all good. It's good.
Cool. I
it's
didn't know. I didn't know.
Yeah.
All right. What's the YouTube show? Where can people find it?
Oh, Dungeons and Do-Rags. And so
it is your Dungeon Giants.
Yeah. So I get on the mic with my two BFFs, my black BFFs, and we just talk about politics and pop culture, and they make fun of me on all different types of things.
Right on. Cool. All right. I didn't realize that was fired back up, so I'll have to check that out.
That's fun.
Jean, it's been a minute too. I haven't seen you for a while now.
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I think we're going to catch up with each other next week. I'm going to come down.
Agatha. Yeah.
Well, Agatha too, right? Yeah. Oh man, the Agatha pod you and Elysia just did was great. I was it was really good, and it prepped me for the season really well. So
that was a complete nerd off.
Yeah, it was awesome. Right, and I think Jean and Ron, this is your first time together on the mic as well, right?
Yeah, it is. Good to meet you, my man.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a fun time.
Yeah.
Cool. Elysia, how are you?
Doing okay. Excited to talk about Alien. Finally, I have my brain is a swirl of horror movies right now. Doing all the
Spooktober, middle of September. It's already started. Right, because I think Prey, because we're going to do Prey for our subscriber-only Elevensies podcast.
Right.
And that's kind of horror, I guess you could say.
I'm definitely classifying it as horror. It's a companion piece to what we're talking about today because it's a Predator movie.
That's a very good point. Cool. Okay, so we have a packed outline for the movie today. So we're going to start off with our spoiler-free hot takes, like I mentioned. But first, just really quick, a synopsis to set the scene. In 2142, a group of downtrodden young space colonists attempt to scavenge a derelict space station where they encounter species XX121, also known as the Xenomorph. So right off the bat, Ron, would you rather the Nostromo, LV-410 Jackson Star? These are in story order. LV-426, which is the planet Acheron, and there we have Hadley's Hope as well as the alien ship. Fiorina 161, which is Aliens 3, and then the USM Auriga, which is Aliens 4. And you can interpret this question any way you want. Just, would you rather?
Gee. Jackson Star, which one is that again?
That's Romulus. That's this
Romulus.
movie.
So the planet that they're on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would much rather be there.
Right on.
That's
working for the company.
Working for the company. Rather work for the company than fighting off xenomorphs in a closed space or in a prison.
For real. Jean, would you rather?
I'm leaning toward Nostromo, man.
Okay, all right. Going in for the nostalgia.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Nostromo. I like to know where my environments are, where I'm at. I know the layout. I can get to where I need to get to, hopefully quicker than the crew did. So yeah, I'm kind of leaning on Nostromo here.
I'm just saying, Jean, the crew knew the layout also. The crew knew the layout also.
Well enough.
Just putting that out there.
Jean studied the technical plans that has been published.
It's all up here. I'm pointing to my head. It's all in my brain. It's all up here. I got it.
Elysia, would you rather?
Oh, I mean, if I can be on the Nostromo before the whole alien encounter, it didn't seem so bad. You can chill. Apparently the coffee's decent.
Finish my coffee. It's the only thing good on the ship.
Right, yeah, the only damn good thing on the ship.
At least you know you're going homewards. I think like Jackson Star, or assuming Hadley's Hope operated the same way Jackson Star did, as you are basically an indentured servant. I guess at least there you can go out, but Nostromo pre-Xenomorph is where it's at. Like you just shoot the shit over breakfast after your cryo sleep.
Of course, you would have a cat with you.
Of course, yeah, Jones is there.
Yeah, I think I would lean to, I'd be hanging with Ron. I think we'd be down there. I think we'd be getting up some mischief, maybe some side hustles going down or something like that. So I think that's the best place. Fury 161, no thank you. I do not need to be on a penal colony. All right, well, hot takes time. Ron, why don't you lead us off? What is your spoiler-free hot take for Alien Romulus?
I really enjoyed this. It was a fun romp. It touched on some nostalgia from a number of the movies, and I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit later in the spoiler section. It was like a good action horror thriller, and it's the kind of horror that I can take. I think I've said this on another that I can't.
Was it borderline or
no? Like I can take this. Like Aliens, the second one, that's like my favorite in the series. I can do the action adventure horror. Can't take creepy women crawling out of a well or spinning heads, that kind of stuff. Just or creepy cults in the New England area. I just can't do those. And xenomorphs I can take.
I think we're doing Poltergeist for our Spooktober movies.
Yes.
See, I think you're
Poltergeist is kind of like
that's
light.
One of my all-time favorites.
To me, it's kind of like.
Is it?
The first one, yeah. I that one didn't freak me out as much as like Exorcist or something. But yeah.
Fair.
Oh man, I'd love to go back and see the original Exorcist because that scared the F out of me when I was a kid.
Yeah, as a kid, I can see that. Overall, though, like I said, I enjoyed this movie. I have a few issues, but nothing that took away my enjoyment.
Jean, what about you?
I really liked it. I liked it more than I thought I would.
Okay, all right.
Much more than I thought I would. I went into it with relatively low expectation. And I came out of it like, wow, this was a really fun movie. And telling people to go see it. I did not expect to have that reaction. Yeah, it's a fun movie. Right? I loved it.
Cool. Elysia?
I don't want to spoil my rankings that we're going to do at the end of the episode, but
Right, we're going to do some power rankings at the very, very end.
yeah, but I'll say this ranks quite high for me in this franchise. I had one problem with, we're going to talk about a certain questionable rights issues thing, but that aside, I had one problem with one.
We all know what you're talking about. You just got to save it. Yeah.
I had one problem with one callback, and then later on, actually, someone pointed out to me that it was set up. So I was like, okay, I withdraw my objection.
Okay.
I think it's a good film.
All right.
I think it hit on, I didn't think I wanted it to bring together the prequel stuff, but I think that it did that well, bringing together the old and the new and the in-between. And it felt like a part of this franchise where every movie has felt kind of different, but it felt like it somehow, coalesced them all together. And I forget his name. The guy from Rye Lane who played the android was just phenomenal.
David Johnson.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Cool.
Also in the first season of Industry.
Oh, I haven't watched that yet, but noted. It's on the list.
And Industry is getting strong reviews.
Yeah, it's
the season and in general as a series.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I think I'm pretty much in the same. I've been doing some community reactions as well, talking with some of our listeners and some other folks. And I feel like we're all pretty much on the same page, which is it was a really good summer action flick. It scratched that itch of having that fun action horror romp. I thought it's a great reboot for the new generation. So I think it's going to bring in a whole bunch of new fans. I would say one of the strengths of the original 79 movie is that people could see themselves on screen. This is just an office place. And this is, it's a normal working environment in space, and then something wild happens. And so I think a lot of young people can just see themselves on screen with this cast. And hopefully that'll bring in a whole bunch of new people into the franchise. I think everybody has pointed out it's just a massive nostalgia bomb for all of the previous movies. There's just so many little callbacks and scenes. I kind of felt like the last big set piece section could have just been trimmed. I didn't need the whole ending thing. I think we could have left it somewhere else, and we can talk about that when we get into it. But I agree that David Johnson stole the show. He was really the standout actor and character for the whole thing. A question for you all. Is the franchise better off for having this movie or worse off for having this movie?
Well, considering what came immediately before, I would say this is a market improvement.
It's better off. Better off.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's a much better place.
Yeah.
Right, because I think the last movie we had was Covenant, right?
I believe so.
2017. Yeah, Covenant was the last movie we had. Ron, what do you think? Do you think it's done its job?
Yeah, I absolutely think it did. I think the world building that it created was really good. I like how it built on the company and what's behind the company. I like where it left off, and I think it can do some good work from here on out.
Right, and it sounds like they're talking maybe Fede Alvarez, who's the director. They might be doing some more stuff.
Not a bad idea.
It'd be curious to see how it feeds into the television show that Noah Hawley is going to be working on.
Alien Earth, which is going to be coming out next
year. Is it Noah
year.
Hawley? Noah Wally?
Yeah, it's Noah Hawley. You're right.
Hawley. I'm thinking of Noah Wiley from ER.
Okay.
Noah Hawley, yeah. I'd be curious to see how this ties into that creation, if there will be any.
Yeah, no, I think Alien Earth, from what I understand, is going to be set even before the original Alien movie. This is going to... And I don't think he's taking into account... I read a fragment of an interview somewhere, and I think he's not taking a Covenant and Prometheus into account.
Good for him.
And he's just sticking with the mainline universe. All right, well, it's just a couple of quick production details just to, again, cover bases. This was written by Fede Alvarez and Rodo Saegues. They're two writing partners out of Uruguay, and it's directed by Fede Alvarez. And he worked and had a lot of conversations with Ridley Scott, and they even had some of the original production folks from the original 79 movie on crew and working with them in their designs and the building and stuff like that. The characters are based on creations from Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett, and it's starring Kaylee Spaney, David Johnson, Archie Renault, Isabel Merced, Spike Fern, and Eileen Wu.
Can I just say that I've been seeing Kaylee Spaney in like everything all of a sudden. I think so there's this, and then I've been watching finally Mayor of Easttown, and then I watched The Craft Legacy for the Will Shift Dust Spooktober thing, and she's in that too. Like,
oh wow, okay.
She's all of a sudden all over the place. But anyway, sorry.
And she was in Civil War, which
I was just gonna
Ron
say that.
and I
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
covered. Yeah. All right. So this was released just in August. Had a budget of $80 million. And to date, it has made $315 million. That's just under $100 million in the US and just over $200 million international. So that's, what is that, 4x? So that's pretty good. I would consider that a success.
That's interesting that it's done twice as well internationally as in the US. It's really, it shows that it's playing well overseas. I wonder, I guess they probably got a China release. That often makes a difference there.
I didn't dive deeper into the numbers. There's several websites that have report on all that kind of stuff. And I think it's more Europe. If I could be wrong.
I mean, it sure was popular here. I can tell you that. It was,
cool.
Yeah.
Right on. So on Rotten Tomatoes, it's got an 80% favorable from the critics and 85% of verified popcorn users on Rotten Tomatoes. And they've done like a thing right now where they've, for the user reviews, they've separated verified versus unverified. And for the all users, it's 82%. So still holding a pretty good number. And on Metacritic, it's a 64, scores a rank of 64. So a little bit lower for the critics, but a 7.3 for the user score. So strong. I think it's a strong showing. All right. So the next question is big screen, small screen. Jean, would you recommend folks see this on the big screen or wait for streaming?
On both.
Okay.
that's my answer on both.
All right.
Some people don't necessarily want to be in the theater, and that's
sure.
fine.
Right on.
But I think however you can watch it, you should watch it.
Ron, big screen, small screen.
If you can see this on the big screen, I definitely would do the big screen. The cinematography looks great. Some of the imagery that happens looks, especially towards the end, this looks really fantastic on the big screen. So if you you feel comfortable doing that, I would go for big screen.
Cool. Elysia?
All things considered equal, I would definitely recommend it is one that's worthy. It's a visual spectacle worthy of a big screen if you have that as an option.
I saw it in a very small town, a reasonable sized town in Maine. And I saw it the afternoon of Saturday that it came out. And it was a beautiful day out, Maine, summertime. And there were 6 other people in the theater with me. And they all sort of, filtered in sort of at the last minute. So I was kind of surprised. I thought I was going to be in the theater all by myself. I didn't see it in IMAX or anything big like that, but I would say first viewing would be definite big screen just to take in the beautiful CGI and the sets that they created. It was pretty...
I actually put off watching it for a few days so that I could watch it in a specific theater in Amsterdam called Tuschinski. That's it's a theater that dates from I think it was built in the early 20s. It combines Art Deco, the style, Amsterdam School, combines all these different architecture styles from the time to the point where once it was unveiled, after it was unveiled, the city was like, okay, from now on, we need to approve plans up front because they thought it was so ugly. But then, the World War II happened and the Nazis took it over and painted over all of it. And it's been fully restored to its original state. So
wild.
When you go in there, I try to take pictures, it has these butterfly motifs and all this really complex decor. And it was sitting inside the ship with them while watching them on the screen almost. Just
nice.
The decor around me. Yeah.
Anybody got any good trailers? I saw Nosferatu, Joker 2, and Beetlejuice 2.
Yeah, I think I saw all 3 of those as well.
Yeah. Nothing to write home about, actually.
Okay. Are you guys excited for Joker, Elysia and Joel?
I'm more so than he is, even though I don't love the original, but yeah, they got me with Gaga and singing. I'm like, okay, let's see.
Right.
Give it to me. Show me what you got.
Yeah.
And Nosferatu, are you? That looked interesting.
I am very. Okay. I've been rewatching not only the 20s and the 70s Nosferatus, but also a bunch of short films and stuff that were. I put together a whole list of films that were part of this German expressionism movement about. Yeah. I'm going deep on it.
Okay, as usual.
That would be a hell no for me.
Oh,
For
right.
Nosferatu, yeah. No vampires for you.
No, I actually like vampires, but again, I saw the trailer.
Not this one.
Nope.
Funny.
I'm more of a Lost Boys kind of vampire movie.
That's not even a vampire movie.
I like Interview with the Vampire.
That's great.
That's not bad.
Best
That's
show
not-
of the year.
Yeah,
That's a
I
little
even
bit
like
better
Bram
than
Stoker's.
Lost
Bram Stoker's.
That's the porn version. Sorry.
Yeah,
That's right. I
It's gotta
have
be.
no doubt.
I'm sure that
there's
exists.
a Bram Stoker's.
No doubt.
No.
So we usually run through a few of our analytics, the little things that we've sort of made up and adopted over time, just for fun, just a way to frame and think about movies. So we have the Pukila scale for violence. This is named after our favorite Tolkien scholar, Marilyn R. Pukila. You can hear her on our Rings of Power coverage. And if we take season 1 of Rings of Power as a sort of a just tolerable violence level, we sort of have an infinite scale of was this more or less violent than that? I don't think we need to answer this question.
No.
I think it's clear that this thing,
No, yeah.
this is way up there. 6, 7.
I mean,
chart.
it's not the worst thing I've seen recently in that
No.
film, but it's up there. Yeah.
It's pretty high. It's pretty high.
But it's funny because it's only got a few points, but they're so well done
Yeah.
and so good that they really are impactful. We have the Sanderson slider. This sort of measures inspiration versus adaptation. And I don't really think that this applies directly, but it really does incorporate so much of the source material. And we'll talk about it later. So I don't really know where to put this on this because it's very inspired by a lot of things, but it's also adapting a lot of things. So
Yeah, it would be qualify for an adapted screenplay if they ever considered horror at the Oscars. Yeah, it's a sequel, so it's not like you don't want it to redo the same story.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And then we have the Lopez test, which is based on the season 4 of True Detective, and this is just, does it fit within the franchise that it's supposed to? Or that it's named for. And I think it clearly passes the Lopez test for being aliens. And then the last thing is the Shippey test, which is the medium versus the message. Does the screen adaptation alter the core message of the original work? But I don't think it applies in this case.
Doesn't apply. No.
Yeah. Even though I think, and we'll talk about it more, the Fede Alvarez, his close study of all of the original source material, he really knows what he's doing when it comes to placing this movie into this universe.
Well, so I would say in this regard that Aliens, the second one, does more to alter the core message than this one does. Like this one really does feel like an in-between of the two movies that it timeline-wise is in between.
Yeah, it's interesting. We should probably talk about that when we get into it a little bit more about what is Alien, what is the franchise, what does the franchise mean, and when we go to an Aliens movie, what are we expecting? Cool. All right. Well, let's take a little break, and when we come back, we will get into full spoiler territory. All right, we are back. So I wanted to kind of kick off with something and to see where this will lead us, because we're going to have a pretty loose flowing conversation, even though we've got a pretty good outline and a bunch of notes. But I saw a piece of interesting feedback on our Discord from Layer Cake. And they say IP sequels truthfully need to copy some tone, atmosphere, and concepts to even remotely work at a basic level, but there needs to be substantial effort put in to also creating something new in the process. This is where Romulus didn't work for me. It looks, sounds, and acts like an alien film because it's cloning the DNA of them rather than splicing off fragments for a new breed. I like a lot of the technical qualities of Romulus, but I'm also so awfully tired of, quote, I understood that reference, close quote, cinema. So kind of a lead-off question, is this summer slasher movie a slightly off-base blockbuster? There's a lot of franchise movies out this year. Are we suffering from any sort of franchise fatigue? Was there too much fan service or not enough in this movie? Ron, kick off with your thoughts.
I thought that was an interesting comment that they left, because I agree to some extent with the later things that they said towards the end. But the initial thing that they wrote saying that an IP sequel needs to have some DNA of the original. If you compare Alien and Aliens, I would say those are two different genres. They feel very different. Alien is like a space haunted house. There's one monster. Aliens, you have a whole bunch of them coming at you. Like, I remember watching Alien. I saw Aliens before I saw Alien. And I remember thinking, how were they not able to kill just one in the first movie? Like, they're killing a whole bunch of, yeah, I know there's the military and everything, but I just remember thinking they kind of elevated, or maybe it's the wrong word. I almost went in reverse because that one alien in the first one seemed so powerful and so unbeatable. And by the second one, you're knocking off a whole bunch. He almost seemed like it was unkillable. So it feels very much like a different movie. So the whole thing about an IP sequel having some DNA from the first, I don't know if I 100% agree with. But I do like the point about a sequel creating or bringing something new. And, this kind of, I mean, you could say it suffers from the Force Awakens syndrome in the sense that
that's a good comp. That's a really good comp.
In the sense that it's kind of like treading where we've gone before. And on both of the classics, Alien and Aliens. And so I don't necessarily have a problem with that if the storytelling is good. And if it's like, I really enjoyed Force Awakens. I understand the criticism behind it. But it was fun and it's enjoyable, and this one was too. And so I think lost opportunities. Sometimes I think there are lost opportunities when you don't create something new to a sequel, but I don't think that in and of itself makes it a bad sequel.
Jean, was this too much fan service for you? Because I detected every single movie excluding the AVP movies, right? Excluding the Predator movies, Covenant, Prometheus, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all in there. 4, 5, whatever. All the major movies were in there in some way, shape, or form. Was that too much for you, or did you vibe with it?
I vibed with it. It didn't take me out of the movie.
Okay.
I wasn't sitting there saying, "Oh man, I know what this is from. Oh man, I know what this is from." Like, I never felt that way. I watched the movie and I never felt out of the movie. So I kind of disagree with what they said because for me, at least, the fan service was not overwhelming and didn't, take away or detract from my viewing of the film. And I kind of feel like they did bring something new to the movie when they're on planet. And
on Jackson Star.
Yeah. And they're going through their daily lives, and we're seeing what that entails. That's something that I don't think was ever truly shown in the previous movies, how the regular day-to-day lives of people are affected by this corporation that's, totally in control, it seems like, of everything in that universe, right? Making decisions that are, incomprehensible, which is interesting. This is a sidebar. There's a What If comic about aliens that came out this year. In Marvel, yeah.
Cool. Was it good?
It was good, which shows that side of the Corp, right? Where you have people mining and can't get away from the corporation and things of that nature. So it's interesting that the movie sort of spoke to what this comic was speaking to during the same time period, during the same year. So yeah, I didn't feel taken out of the movie, and I did feel that they brought something new to the series.
Elysia, I was making a little scratch list of all of the franchise movies that were out this year. It's a lot.
Conservative corporate thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Do you feel any kind of franchise fatigue overall, or do you feel like, it's been a while since we've had an alien franchise movie, so we're due for one, period, right? But did this get affected by franchise fever, or do you feel like it was its own movie? And
I don't consider this movie in any way in having, being related to franchise fatigue. I was going to say that in terms of the fan service side of it, because as you said, it's been quite a while, and this was like a sort of return to form. But on the fan service side of it, like I think that you do need a movie like this to tie together the other elements to justify why are we doing another story in the same world. It's like with Andor season 2 coming up, and everyone's like, Tony Gilroy doesn't want to do fan service. I'm like, yeah, but if they don't some way acknowledge that Leia is a young famous senator at that time, then why are we even making a story in this part of the timeline?
Right.
So I was saying there was one, aside from the whole, we'll talk about the person who came back from the dead.
Well, you can talk about it now if you want. We're in.
But I was going to say that the one thing that bothered me was at the end, he was like, "Get away from me, bitch," or whatever.
Right. And Andy says to the alien drone he kills, "Get away from her, you bitch." David of Future Past here in post-production. I pulled up all the "you bitch" lines from Romulus and Aliens and combined them all here. Bjorn actually calls Andy a bitch twice, once on the shuttlecraft when they're about to take off, and once again when he grabs Navarro to head to the shuttle. I've also included the bitch line that Andy says when he kills the alien drone, as well as the original from 1986 with Ripley. And apologies for the audio quality from the Romulus movie. The official PVOD is not out yet.
Get away from her. You bitch.
Get away from her, you bitch!
But then somebody pointed out to me that before that, the cousin, I forget his name, the cousin guy who was the jerk, he called Andy a bitch a few times. So that's where he got that word from. Okay.
Yeah. Good pickup. I missed that.
So that does make sense. But then again, it's like, are we twisting around a plot just to get this one line in there? Then it's like, yeah, that's the one point where I was like,
Right.
The other about this, the CGI.
I think it was Bjorn who was played by Spike Fern.
Okay.
Tyler's cousin.
Right. Yeah. And then for the android from the dead, is that Rook? Is his name?
Rook. Yeah.
Yes. So, okay, I'm not even going to tackle the whole ethical side of whether to use the image of an actor who's passed away with the permission of their spouse and blah, blah, blah. That whole issue is very complicated. And I'm just going to point that there was bad CGI. So that was my problem with that.
Right. That was Ian Holm who played the original. Right. Why am I blanking the name of that?
Ash, right?
Ash. Thank you. Yeah, I just couldn't think of his name.
But yeah, someone pointed out to me, like, there's always another way to do it. I understand why they did it. And I thought that story-wise, it did make sense and was kind of cool in a story way. But someone was like, wouldn't it have also been powerful if we had another model like Andy, who was, and then Andy sees literally his own face reflected back at him.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
So there is, you can make decisions like that. So those are the two fan servicey things. I was like, everything else, I was like, no, this is perfectly woven together, meshed together, the right balance of the ingredients for me personally.
Yeah, I didn't realize that Andy had taken the word bitch from what Bjorn had used it
Someone
before.
Had to point it out to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to look on that. Look at when I watch it again in the future. Because for me, that line did take me out for a second. And I think I got back in, but never as fully as I did. And that's one of the things, one of the things we like to kind of look at too in when we do our one-shots is what worked and what didn't work. And for me, one of the things that didn't work was the zero gravity scene. And I get why and, all that. And they set it up nicely and everything. But they made a point to say that she had never been in space before. So how does she know how to work in zero gravity? Like zero gravity is like one of the hardest things for human beings that are used to gravity to deal with. So I was like, it doesn't quite work for me. But that aside, that I could accept that for the sake of the movie. But I could not accept the "get away from her, you bitch" line.
Okay.
Because it felt to me like it, and some of the people in my theater enjoyed it, and some of the people didn't react at all.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't react.
What's that?
I didn't react.
Okay.
Until
I
you
don't
brought
think
it up.
reacted.
Until you brought it up, I didn't even remember that line was in the movie. Until you just brought
really?
It up.
That's so funny.
See, I wonder if that's why it didn't pull you out. Because when you said that nothing pulled you out, that's the first thing I thought about was, for a lot of people, that line did pull them out, specifically because it was such an iconic line from Aliens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to comment when you said, Elysia, regarding the bad CGI of the Rook character. I actually kind of felt like it worked for what he was, because he was an android. So that sort of uncanny valley-ness of it all kind of, I think, worked for what he was. And if you were to compare that to the practical effects of the Ash when he was torn apart, it's like
in the original movie.
I honestly think that was better. The stumpy head
you could argue
model.
it was better, but part of that was kind of hurting. It was like, it doesn't look too real.
Because they do a hard cut from Ian Holm's real head to this really bad latex.
Where she's trying to straighten the head, and it's like, okay, that's where they really stuck him under the table and stuck his head through.
I mean, I complained about it, quote unquote, when we did the breakdown of that movie recently, but for this one, I think the thing is, like, the CGI was just of a shockingly low level for me, given the quality of the rest of the film. So that took me out, just being like, why is this so much worse than the rest of the special effects? Like,
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Was there anything else, Elysia, that didn't work for you, or was there something that was that really worked for you?
Well, actually, I was going to say what really worked for me was the zero gravity scene with the acid.
Right on. Okay,
because I thought it was. They set it up. They had the whole thing. That was a cool element of them coming onto the ship and having this annoying gravity thing that kept shifting. So it would like slam them into the ground. And so it was like a nice element to thwart them when they first enter the ship. And then, that's setting that up for this callback. And it was just so cool. It's like, I called it like the acid ballet, just trying to avoid the acid in the air. But at some point you're like, oh, this acid's going to come down. And then it does.
Yeah.
And it was satisfying.
And it's a nice through line too, because even in the final set, well, I can't really call it the final set piece, but the final round of action when they're on the shuttlecraft, that is all involving zero G. There's a bunch of zero G related stuff in there. And I believe Andy says a joke early on about, is it an astronaut or something like that falling? And one of his dad jokes. And then he tells her that joke again when they're sitting there sort of contemplating their doom.
I read a great book about zero gravity.
I just couldn't put it down.
And that's when she clicks. She's like, aha, I know what to do. And she goes over and hits the button to, do the gravity stuff. So not only did Fede Alvarez set up the whole gravity thing through the entire movie, but he also uses Andy's dad jokes as a plot mechanic to be able to give her the keys to unlock the thing that's going to save their lives. Jean, did the zero gravity ballet work for you?
Yeah, it works for me.
All right.
It works.
All right.
The only thing that I was like, huh? But then I was just like, it didn't take me out of the movie was, I'm going to refer to him as the big baby. So when the big baby, when the big ass baby came, so I'm like, all right, I don't know what it's going to look like, but it's going to look like something. Then this big ass baby came out, and I'm like, wait a minute, what's this big ass baby? And now we dealing with big ass baby, right? And it's when he what's her name? the mother,
right? Kay. Played by Isabella Merced.
He finally gets to her. I guess he's Dracula. He's like vampiring her.
Right.
Yep. That's what he was doing. I didn't get why he was vampiring her.
Right. I thought maybe he would like be connected to her, like want to protect her or something.
Yeah, that's the first thing that I thought. It was like, why is he vampiring her? And
he goes up and sniffs her, right? It's like he's like, hey, are you my mom?
Right. Yeah. And then then next he's like draining her. And I'm like, why is he draining her? Like, I didn't get an explanation for that. Like, there was nothing to tell me why Big Baby was doing that. And so that's the only thing that I would like an explanation to why that
well, and
occurred.
why does he look like partial engineer and stuff? Yeah, I thought that visually was really cool. Like he looked super scary. And I loved that on the visual side. That was the part of the movie where I had the most questions about, like, wait, so what is the sequence of events of like, are we supposed to ask questions about who the father is? Because she said the father is just some nobody.
Headcanon for me was Bjorn was the father.
The cousin.
Bjorn is her cousin.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Bjorn is
but
her
hey,
cousin?
it's Jackson Starr.
I mean, they had an interaction that made me think that, but then but just the fact that they are cousins, I was like, yeah,
maybe not.
It's out there. Ron, Big Baby, did it work? Not work for you?
It wasn't. I mean, I wasn't crazy about the Big Baby. Like it wasn't like it didn't ruin the movie for me or anything. I was, as soon as she stuck herself with that needle, I was like,
we knew.
Why?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? I don't understand. I mean, I think they kind of try to sell it that she did it because she was worried for her baby. And she thought, like, the way it was explained, like this serum would help. But it just didn't make sense that she, I mean, I guess it kind of made sense, but not enough sense, I guess, that she would inject herself with this alien fluid that's never been tested. She has no idea what it is. So, and then when the baby was born,
they sort of tease, Fede sort of teases that the experiment does go wrong, right? Because they cut away to
the giant
rats. And, we see it.
It explodes.
I was like, okay, this is not going to end up well.
I think that's one of the themes too, and this is a thought when we're thinking of the Alien franchise writ large, that when O'Bannon and Shusett originally, were conceiving of the storyline, Ronald Shusett is the one who came up with the idea for the face hugger to impregnate people, and basically was sort of like, oh yeah, it's, pardon the description here, but I believe this is from the documentary about this. He says, yeah, it's fucking your face, right? It's like, and you got this thing. And we see that a couple of times in the scene. It's like, wow. But then that goes into the whole Giger psychosexual artwork. And always the Alien franchises have something to do with sex and sexuality. When I'm blanking the name of the woman, the one of the last characters to die in the original movie, like the tail comes up underneath her between her legs, right? And this kind of stuff. And then there's this sort of penetrating, people are being penetrated by the alien, and then eggs and
their precious bodily fluids.
I can no longer sit back and allow communist infiltration, communist indoctrination, communist subversion, and the international communist conspiracy to sap and impurify all of our precious bodily fluids.
Elysia, did this movie work on that level for you? I mean, like, what is an alien movie? What are you expecting when you go to see an alien movie? What do you want from the franchise?
I mean, I guess you expect the Giger, at least Giger influence designs, which has all of that wrapped up in it. And definitely it looks like an alien movie to me. It looks like something that was gritty space industrialism with also these sort of covert Art Deco elements, with like the curvature of the lines, like clean lines, but then everything just looks a bit roughed up and lived in. And so, on the design level, it absolutely worked for me. Yeah, I mean, I guess alien movies are also in some way always about the life cycle of these aliens and putting new twists on it. So this definitely ticked off that box. Yeah, I guess I just wonder if with the story of Kay and her baby and whatever, if this is something that was intentionally left open for a sequel to fill in. Like, I did feel like this ended fine. It could be its own standalone thing, but I did feel like that they were perhaps queuing up a sequel. Do you guys
I was
think
talking with one of our listeners, one of our subscribers, Do71, for the Community Feedback podcast. And he mentioned that if the movie had ended with Rain putting Kay into the bed. Oh, and just a little weird side note. If you look at it, when they're bringing the sleep pods into the shuttle, which was very similar to the way the original pod was brought into from the probe at the very beginning of the movie. So they mirror that. It's a nice little thing. But the sleep pods is in the shape of a W of the Weyland-Yunti Corporation. So a little fun detail. Anyway, he would have been fine, and I agree with him on this, that if they had ended the movie there, knowing that Kay had injected herself and she goes into stasis, and then Rain goes into stasis, boom, sequel prepped, right? You're ready to go. But instead, Fede goes into this whole long extended thing with Big Baby, and I don't know. That's I was
but
like,
Big Baby is where I need the answers to. That's what I need them to address in the sequel.
Right. Okay. Ron, I don't know what in terms of fulfilling the promise of Alien, did this movie work for you on that level?
In terms of like, did it feel like it fits into the franchise? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, or go when you go to see an Alien movie, does it? And what are your expectations? You know, be it Giger, be it Alien life cycle, be it action, adventure, horror.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have three types of Alien movies. We have what I call sort of like the original flavor, which I would say would be the first four movies: Alien 1, 2, 3, and 4. A xenomorph, a company fighting them, and
I guess that's part of it. If I can interject you, if I can, what are the elements of it? I think this is good because what are the elements of an Alien franchise movie?
Yeah, for me, like that original flavor element includes fighting the xenomorphs, someone worried about being impregnated. It has more of a thriller or horror aspect to it. I feel like the Prometheus and Covenant almost have a different flavor to it in the sense of it's more about, I feel like it's more about the history of the engineers and who they were. And it brings like this, it introduces, this new storyline and this new history that plays into it. And it has some aspects of the other thing as well. So you get the xenomorphs and whatnot. And then you have the AVP, which are its own whole separate thing. But for me, I want to see, like I said, I want to see fighting the xenomorphs. Ideally, for me, I would love to see some type of character development that makes sense. I feel like some of the decisions made in Prometheus are just like, why are you putting your face next to a leathery egg that's opening up? Like, every time I think of that scene, it's infuriating. And he's supposed to be a scientist anyway.
Ron, you and I had originally done some 79 coverage, and we decided to let that one go for a variety of technical reasons or whatever. But you and I got into a side conversation, which I want to bring back, which is the white people doing dumb shit.
Yes, I know. And I try not to. I mean, you probably can't tell from my voice, but I'm black. That's one of the things I get teased about on my show, about how black I am or am not. But one of the things that it is funny, though,
it is funny.
The stereotypes about things that white people do in movies, going down into basements and putting your face in leathery eggs that are opening up, seem to be at the top. All the while, the black people in movies are like the equivalent of red shirts in Star Trek movies. They oftentimes
let's call that.
But back to your original question about what I wanted to see, the xenomorphs, the fighting. I would love to see good character development, good story development. And I don't know that you get that as much. I feel like there were lost opportunities, for instance, in Prometheus with some aspects of story development and character. Elysia, you mentioned a few things that I felt like would have really beefed up the story of this one. What if instead of having the android be Rook, if it was David, that would be kind of cool. They could have played with, maybe there's a time where you don't know if it's David or if it's this new
Andy.
Andy. Hey, David. If it's Andy or Rook.
David's from the other movie.
Right. I'm getting them all confused. But if Rook looked like Andy, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
And then you could have played with, maybe at some point in the movie, they don't know which one is which. And maybe she makes a reference to the dad joke, and then Rook doesn't know the dad joke or doesn't say the dad joke. So that's
nice.
how she knows.
There you go.
We can backseat script write this all day long. But so I feel like there's some missed opportunities. Yeah. But overall, I felt like this had it.
Jean, something that bugs me about the last couple of movies is this whole thing of the company, or it doesn't even matter that the company's doing it, just that the filmmakers want to do it, is to crossbreed or speciate the xenomorph. And I find it a little bit disappointing for myself, like that they keep going on that. But that is one of the things that we kind of keep getting in the franchise, is that idea of birth and death, and then this sort of crossing humans and xenomorphs. Is that something you want from the franchise, or what are your opinions on that particular aspect of the life cycle of the xenomorph?
For me, they age way too quick, man. You know what I'm saying? It's happening too fast for me, because I see this little squirmy thing just sliding and running, and then 5 minutes later, it's fully grown and chasing me down the hallway. This is too much. I need more time space between baby xenomorph and fully grown, ready to eat me and put me in a cocoon xenomorph.
Right.
As far as the cross species thing, I think that works for me, because this organism, this animal, this creature, this living thing exists for one purpose only, is to reproduce. And whatever it comes across is going to use that as a vessel to reproduce and to further its species. So if it's human, if it's dog, if it's anything, any living organism.
Interestingly enough, that's one of the side conversations about the original Alien movie, is when the alien regards Jonesy the cat and doesn't do anything to Jonesy. There's debate about whether the alien was like, oh, well, she's going to come back and get it so I can get her, or was the cat a viable host or not? Anyway, that's just a fun little side conversation.
You don't mess with cats.
No.
Maybe they view them as lesser than. Who knows?
Right.
Or they're gods. Yeah.
Or they're gods. Right. Yes. So it works for me. All of that stuff works for me. When I go to watch an alien movie, if I don't see face huggers, then what am I doing here? Right.
Right.
If I'm not in some sort of cat and mouse, again with the cats, cat and mouse, if I'm not in some sort of hide and seek type of situation where, if I don't hide well enough, I'm dead, then I don't want to be in that movie if it's called Alien, right? If it has anything to do with this sort of, with what the story is. So those are the things that I kind of expect to see in a movie. That's that sort of vibe. And this movie in particular did that. It gave me my chase scenes. It gave me my face huggers, galore. Actually, they killed me with face huggers. It was great for me to get to witness that. And if you're doing that in an alien movie, I think you're hitting the right notes for me.
Right. I'm going to read this email from one of our subscribers, Lore Master Peter OH. And he had a long email. I sort of broke it up in a couple of parts here. So this is one half of it. I've seen it once. I really enjoyed it. I'm still mulling over some aspects of the lore contained in the movie, but all in all, it was well worth the price of admission. The scene with the cocoon on the wall was something that threw me a little. Is this a standard part of the xenomorph life cycle? I mentally started to nitpick at this. Why do we never see it in other movies? I guess I had quite a rigid view of the life cycle. A queen lays an eggs. The eggs hatch and impregnate a victim. A xenomorph bursts from the victim and grows rapidly. Eventually, one of the victims will host another queen. Rinse and repeat. But I suppose this has never really been the case in the director's cut of Alien. We obviously see another variation of the life cycle where an egg can be created from a victim. And given my defense of Prometheus and Covenant, the versatility of the black goo should not come as a surprise to me. In a way, the creation of the xenomorph represents the ability to destroy humanity. There are a myriad of ways to achieve that goal. I found the introduction of the offspring human xenomorph hybrid a little underwhelming. I do think the creature looks a little bit better than the version we saw in Resurrection. I like the use of Ian Holmes' likeness of a science officer Rook and an android in a I can't say it now.
Simulacrum, yeah.
Yes, of a human being. And I thought the CGI they used to create Crook gave that vibe. You knew you were looking at a real human. I realize there's odds of the older movies where the real actors are portrayed by the androids, but I thought it worked well for this film. Anyway, thanks for the excellent coverage, interesting discussion on all things Xenomorph. Really enjoyed Aisha's contributions. That's Aisha from every single sci-fi film ever where we did a crossover pod with her. And I look forward to hearing everyone's thoughts on Alien Earth. So, Elysia, in terms of the movie bringing something new, like we kind of talked about earlier from Layer Cake, like, their comment about, it should have DNA, but it should go forward. Did the new lore, what?
The cocoons aren't new though.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the lore that the Romulus has opened up worked for you and added to the world building?
Well, I mean, I think what it attempted to do was stitch together, because I think Alien's always been wildly inconsistent in its lore, especially once you take into account the cutscenes, So like that one about, I think, who was it? Was it actually Ridley Scott himself who said he didn't, or maybe it was James Cameron. I don't know. One of the first two directors was the one who explicitly said nah to that whole thing about turning people into the eggs,
Okay.
And then there was also a cocoon in another cutscene, and that was like also a bigger thing in a video game. So I think it was trying to like piece together the very contradictory scraps of the lore that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think where it struggled the most with it was that scene that we've already talked a lot about, because also that was the scene with the big baby, because that also was what connected to the prequels, which is were the biggest mess in that regard. So I didn't really see it as introducing new things as much as trying to grapple with what was already out there and make it more cohesive, which I think it did like 70% well.
I think from an evolutionary standpoint, Ron, I don't know what you think about this, but the idea that the alien has a number of pathways. There's maybe an ideal pathway, but there are alternate pathways. And that cocoon on the wall, that's new, right? We hadn't seen an alien drone birthed in that way before. Literally birthed too, because it had a particular shape to it, right? And it issued forth. I don't know. From a lore standpoint, did
I like that?
Yeah, I mean, was that working for you from what they did with the way that they're showing the aliens evolving and growing?
Yeah, I mean, Elysia suggested that there are other IP that suggests that cocoons aren't new. That was my first time seeing a cocoon, so I actually thought that was interesting because I had never seen that before with regards to how an alien goes from the baby that comes out of your chest to the giant. So I thought that was kind of neat, the idea that it cocoons. And it would also kind of explain why you always see these weird excretions all over the wall that kind of are almost grow and become organic themselves. Like maybe they're leftover cocoons, or maybe that's what creates the cocoons, or that's what helps feed the cocoons. So I thought that was interesting.
Cool.
I agree with Jean that it's the cocoon process is too quick.
Yeah. In they're shortcutting movies, because I think in the original movie, the way that they cut the scenes, it feels like a long time before they encounter a fully grown drone.
Yeah, and then there's a scene where they find the shedded skin, so it suggests that it kind of grows like a snake and sheds the skin.
Right.
I was going to say, I think there's something to be said that maybe this is kind of along the lines of what Jean was saying, that it like maybe it could very well be different species of xenomorph, right? Like just like you have different types of bees, different types of ants, there could be different types of xenomorphs that grow and evolve differently. Who's to say that they all evolve the same way?
I think it also depends on what species they're crossbreeding with.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that's one of the themes of the movie too, is that this is what I was kind of trying to get at before with this idea that filmmakers are constantly trying to breed aliens and humans together. But the idea that speciation can occur, which is these variations based on evolutionary pressures, right? There's a different kind of resource here, so I'm going to adapt myself to be able to optimize taking that on. Well, whereas I don't think that has anything to do with going from a baby alien to a fully grown drone in 5 minutes, right? That's a separate issue from what you were talking about, Ron.
Yeah. One thing that I find interesting is that the design of the facehuggers suggests that it was designed to cross species with a humanoid creature. Like,
true. Yeah.
The way it's, and this is something that I always remarked on, is like, it's specifically designed to grab around a humanoid face and stick its tentacle, or its, I don't want to
its thing.
It's, the thing that
impregnator.
It's impregnator down the throat, right? So
impregnator.
It's not designed to fit on a cat or a dog. Really, the way it's designed, and so that could go back to how the engineers created it. If we're suggesting that the engineers are the ones who created this thing, and so I always found that interesting.
Right, which I think goes back to some of the lore about what Ridley was trying to do with Prometheus and stuff, was that the engineers created the xenomorph to be an efficient exterminator when they wanted to get rid of a planet. Yeah. Because that's one thing I've heard. Like, I don't know.
They, in Alien versus Predator, didn't a xenomorph, didn't a Predator get xenomorph?
But that's not officially canon.
I know, but we got another humanoid species, on film getting xenomorphed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But even the Predators are humanoid. So
that's what I'm saying. So we got another humanoid species getting xenomorphed on film.
Right.
So I've always considered xenomorphs like opportunists. Whatever is around, in order to grow our clan, or in order to grow our unit, that's what we're going to use to grow them. So
maybe they just thought the cat was too small or something. They
for
underestimated
the impregnator. One of the things I really enjoyed in the movie that were sort of this almost B plot thing that was going on with Andy was two things. One, there was a whole like laws of robotics, like what's my prime directive, which is, whatever's best for Rain. And we were covering the Foundation TV series. We're talking a lot about the 3 laws of robotics, and then the ones that have been amended and how different science fiction authors have used and worked on that. But I found it really interesting. They just boiled it really down to what's best, what's best for Rain or what's best for the company. But then that was really the flip side of a coin of identity. And this idea of what is your identity. How is identity formulated and how does identity change? And for Andy, he got a little thing and we saw a whole different personality. And I not only was David Johnson's acting phenomenal, but I just thought it was a really interesting question when it comes to one of the themes that we got in this movie. Ron, what did you make of Andy's? I mean, at one level, it's a very simple, right? Oh, we just changed his programming. But in terms of identity and formulation of identity, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that's an interesting look and take on it, because his identity is changed so dramatically with the chip that's implanted. And I think there's a lot of different ways you could go with it. They didn't really, other than the fact that it kind of changed how he acted and what he was doing with regards to, and whether or not we as an audience could trust him, that chip in his neck. I think those are curious. That would be like a curious theme to explore.
Mm-hmm. Elysia, did you make anything of Andy's transformation and
Well, for me, his whole journey was the heart and soul of the movie. That was the part that worked for me by far the best. Also because of his acting, but also the writing around that part too. Just
right.
Where you just, I had the idea that even before it was acknowledged, and he says everything's fine because it's what's best for Rain, you still feel like there's some deep down part that's filing it away for later. Like, oh, you were just lying to me. You're going to leave me. It really made me think less of Rain, that she would actually go through with this and do this to him. Like, really made me not on her side. I just that whole journey of identity, of what does it mean, what is my goal in life, and then I had the question, like, how do you interpret goals, especially coming from thinking like an algorithm. At the end, she's like, our new directive is what is best for us. Like, well, what does that look like? How does one compute that?
So, which I thought from a laws of robotics thing was really interesting, that they've sort of distilled it down to, to this, like, what is best.
Right. But I think it just shows the fact that they're being asked they're given a directive that sounds relatively simple, but asks for a lot of nuanced, intelligent complexity to process. So they are expecting the androids to be human without acknowledging that they are, that they, might have feelings and, their own personal drives. And of course, that is something that we saw in the prequels. That is one of the things that they did a bit better, was with, David and his quandaries. I don't like where that story went, but I liked the questions they were asking. And I feel like they asked and addressed those same questions better in this film.
Jean, I didn't really think about this before until just sort of now, but there's a big part of this story. I didn't realize how big a part of this story is of the othering of Andy. Right, he's made fun of and assaulted when they're on the planet. He's rejected and pushed aside by some of the ensemble, right? Particularly Bjorn.
Yeah,
yeah. And there's this conversation about, well, they're going to this planet called Yavanna where they don't accept androids as, like, we can't have synthetic life forms. And it's interesting that it's David Johnson who's playing as the actor who's playing this role. Did you pick up on any? Because I don't think Fede went in with that. I don't know that he went in with that opinion, but that's what we got.
I got that immediately.
All right.
As a child of immigrants, as a child of Haitian immigrants, let's not even talk about what's going on right now in this country politically. right. But I got that immediately from the film. Right, the immediate othering of
Andy.
Of Andy, excuse me.
Yeah.
And the thing is, in a lot of sci-fi that deals with, artificial intelligence, that is part of the story. Huge story of, robots and androids and synthoids, whatever you want to call them, being othered. And how do they respond to that othering? Right? So there's a lot of, whether intentional or not, but there is a lot of that centered in his story about being the outcast and why is he an outcast? What makes him different? Why do people view him with such disdain? Why is he treated as a third-class citizen? Why is he treated as, something that's disposable, easily disposable?
Right, because they make a point of him being found on a trash heap and being fixed up.
So these are all, questions that many people in our society who aren't synthoids question, right, have. Again, I'm not sure if it was intentional or not, but it's definitely there.
Ron, it's just clicking on me now too. The Andy model, Rook says to him, "Oh, your model was the backbone of the building of our company and how we got out to space."
MD 255 artificial person. Your model was once the backbone of our colonization efforts, and it's an honor to be in your presence. Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm Science Officer Rook, and I humbly request your services now.
And I can't help but think about chattel slavery now that we're talking about this. I thought it was before that, the backbone of our country is built on enslaved people as opposed to. So I don't think there's any, it's subtle, but I don't think we can't not talk or think about that as Andy's model being played by David Johnson.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. That's obviously, I don't even remember that line from the movie, but now you bring it up.
Rook, when Rook is greeting him, he's saying, "Oh, hey, I'm Rook, and you're Andy, and it's great to meet you." And he's trying to gaslight him into like, "Hey, exactly. I need you to help me with my mission."
No, that's interesting, and it will be interesting to see if they do a sequel. To what extent the othering and these kind of themes. I mean, for me, the best sci-fi is the sci-fi that can speak to themes that affect our current day or touch on issues of morality and humanity using the sci-fi genre. Those are my favorite types of sci-fi. And so it'll be interesting to see if they go down that path in the sequel.
And the thing too with the Alien franchise, the Centaurs, the androids have always been othered. So to say that Andy is being othered is not because simply he's black, right?
It's because he's an android. Sure. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you think about any of the Alien movies, there's always been this derogatory tone taken by some members of the cast, some characters in those movies towards the androids, treating them and talking to them as less than, right? So this has been a very clear line in the movie. This movie just makes it more apparent because he's black, right? And we're trained, our minds are trained to pick up on these cues racially. But in the Alien franchise, this has always been an undercurrent. And I say that, sci-fi that deals with AI, robotics, whatever, always has this underlying theme of what makes one less than human. Right?
Even Star Wars, it's an important theme. Yeah.
Yeah, with the attitudes, we don't serve their kind.
Hey, we don't serve their kind here.
What?
Your droids. They'll have to wait outside. We don't want them here.
Why don't you wait out by the speeder? We don't want any trouble.
I heartily agree with you, sir.
Right.
Yeah.
And I find it interesting that in the Alien franchise, they make a point to say that they prefer the term artificial person. Like, one, that they have a preference, and two, that this preference makes them more, for lack of a better term, human. Preference in which they want to be called.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's take a quick break. And then when we get back, let's talk a little bit about the filmmaking itself and the construction of the film and some of the more fun CGI aspects and stuff. And then we'll wrap it up with ranking the character deaths and then doing our power rankings for the films. We'll be right back. And we're back. Okay, let's start to wrap up a little bit. But before we do that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the filmmaking itself and the construction of the film and the design of the film. I got a whole bunch of fun notes here and there of stuff that triggered me, but I didn't know what you guys were thinking. I'll say this right off the top. I loved the fact that the movie didn't waste time. We were introduced to the characters, they set it up, and then we went. And then for the whole movie, we had a ticking time clock that then kicked into gear. I think it was about minute 51 where they crash into the fuel tank. And then they're like, oh, now we got 20 minutes from like several hours. So I really enjoyed that construction. Ron, did you have any filmmaker notes, so to speak?
I don't think I had any filmmaker notes, so to speak, other than the shot of the spaceship crashing through the rings. I thought looked amazing.
Yeah,
like cinematically, like seeing that was really cool.
I kind of wish I had seen it on a much bigger, more immersive screen, just even for that. That was really nice.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Jean, anything stand out for you from the filmmaking side of the story construction or filmmaking?
I love the ticking time clock.
Mm-hmm.
That felt so good to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all right, this is like a heist, caper.
Mm-hmm.
And
it is literally right.
Yeah.
They're pulling a heist,
right? And we're not trained. I'm not trained to think of the movies in that way. So this time that's clicking, we got to get this done, and then all of a sudden the plans go awry in such a horrific way. Was really I really enjoyed that. Visually, I thought the movie did some really stunning things. The takeoff from the planet as the ship was rising, I thought that was one of my favorite,
really
moments. Yeah.
wow. Just seeing the ship, or when rain covers your eyes because of the sun, or
yes,
all of it,
that
all
entire
of it.
sequence of leaving the planet, I really, really enjoyed. And like Ron, that crashing through the rings, the asteroid, whatever belt that surrounded the planet was really tremendous as well.
Cool. Elysia?
It was a well shot, gorgeous movie. I think I just out of curiosity, I went back and just looked at what was the review I left on Letterboxd the day that I saw the movie, and did I say anything about the visual side? And oddly enough, I didn't. So I think maybe because Alien is such a visual franchise, because of the Giger stuff, because of the space stuff, because of the general aesthetic. I wouldn't say, I say it did it very well in a more modern way. It feels like a 2024 movie, but not in a way that for me redefined the franchise in any way. So my review here is all about the characters, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. And I did not like the cousin. I still don't.
No. That's another question I had. Did the ensemble work for you? Did this group of young actors who are semi-known to kind of not known, Elysia, do you think the casting was on point?
Yeah, sure. I think, I think, we had Kelly Spenny and David Johnson were doing most of the work as it should be, both on top of their game. And we already praised David Johnson. I think that Kaylee Spanny, I was just talking about her with Catherine for, when we were talking about the Craft legacy. And I think she's just like got this every girl quality, and maybe that's why she's so popular. Like, she's cute, and all that, and she's a good actress, but she plays roles that people can slip themselves into, if that makes sense.
Does that make sense, Ron, that Kaylee Spaney can kind of be an every woman character?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking earlier about all the different things she's been in this year and how she's coming across, and I remember watching it thinking that she looked familiar, and thinking, is that the woman from Civil War? And I was thinking, this is one of her. Every now and then, especially if someone's coming up, they have a year where they have so many things come out that just kind of shows that they're on fire.
Washes.
Right. So she's having a moment.
For sure. Now, the question is David Johnson's star going to rise just as fast? I don't know him. Jean, did you know David Johnson from anything? I don't know if you're not watching Industry or...
I'm not watching
Industry.
Lane.
Everybody watch Rye Lane.
What is that?
It's like a before sunrise style rom-com, I guess you could say.
Okay.
But set in London. And yeah, it's sort of like the sort of thing where two people meet and they just end up meandering through the city together and getting to know each other. And so it's a character study.
Okay.
I think his acting was more impressive in Alien just because, he was kind of playing two different roles, basically.
Completely.
And yeah, but Rye Lane, you can't watch Rye Lane and walk away from it not liking him,
right?
Not feeling like warmth toward him. And I think I haven't seen Industry yet. I know that's doing well, and I think he hasn't missed yet, right? So
fingers crossed. Yeah, because his transformation from from his two programmings was a stellar performance, an absolute stellar performance.
And to my knowledge, for the record, I think he's only in season 1 of Industry.
Of Industry? Okay.
Yeah. If he's in season 2, it's probably very little.
But I heard a lot of good things about season 1 too. Like
yeah, season 1 is great. Yeah, I mean, every season of Industry is really good.
Ron, I know you and I share a deep love for Aliens, the second movie, and for me, one of the most iconic parts of that movie is the M41A pulse rifle, the sound that it makes, just it's the way it looks and stuff. How did the F44AA pulse rifle work for you? I got a couple of links in the outline document there. If you want to, there's some pictures. If you want to, anybody wants to look. I thought that this thing was cool as hell. I was really down for it.
What did you like so much about it?
I loved that it was its own weapon, but that it falls within the technology envelope of the time period. And Duve had a comment about this when I was talking to him, that this is a research vessel by and large, right? So whatever security or military forces on it are going to be secondary and they're not going to be primary. Whereas like in the fourth movie, it was like a military research space station, right? So these are going to be a bunch of, people who might have minimal weapons training. And so the whole idea of the assisted aiming thing, I thought was a really cool advancement of the world and the lore building. And it solved a problem for the movie, which is how do you take a kid on a mining planet and give them a pulse rifle and they can actually do anything with it?
Well,
but
that's
then
why they
visually,
had
it's
that.
just like,
right,
exactly.
Right.
But I thought that they solved the problem in an elegant way. Yeah. And then it just looks perfect for, right. It's a research vessel. It's white, it all goes, I think, they thought about it and they put something together that was unique for the movie, but actually played within the envelope of the technology of the era. Oh, and then what other little comment that I have to make, which is, I don't know if anybody else caught this, but in the ending sequence, when she's battling Big Baby, she's doing it John McClane style. She's doing it barefoot through that whole like final battle because she was going to get into the pod. So she'd taken her shoes off. Yeah.
Well, I guess as a callback to, they didn't want to do it like with Sigourney Weaver in the original, she was in her underwear.
Right.
So it's just showing like the vulnerability, but they toned it down for this, which I don't mind.
Yeah, not at all. Right. That was a very 70s perv kind of thing with her.
Yeah.
But then they did mirror the scene of Rain getting into the spacesuit, very similar to Ripley getting into the spacesuit in the locker there. Cool. Anything else anybody wants to talk about the film? I just thought that the lighting and the sets were on point. That everything looked great. The aliens looked great. I think we got just enough without getting too much. Jean, anything else that comes to mind?
No, really. It's again, the film was enjoyable. The visuals were enjoyable to me. Andy was great.
Yeah.
So I'm just, again, I enjoyed the film.
Elysia, anything that you stand out from the filmmaking that you want to wrap up with?
I thought it was like the coolest chest bursting scene we got.
We didn't even talk about that really.
Yeah, it's a shame with Navarro. It's a shame that they spoiled it in the preview, but I also like it was a thing from the preview. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It was even with that's right.
It was a thing in the trailer that got me most excited, but then when it came to that part, this is like the first big moral quandary with Andy is, he doesn't want to or he's trying to stop them, and we are more on his side immediately because we know she does have a chest burster in her because we know from the trailer that there's eventually there's going to be a light and show that. So that was kind of a shame, but it was still a really cool moment.
That's a really interesting thought line that we didn't take up either, which is when David, because it's David Johnson, but it's the character's Andy, and like David from Prometheus. Yeah. Was it when Andy is like, no, I timed the door closing perfectly. I'm not going to open the door because the alien is setting a trap for us. And, he's amazing in that he's like thinking 3-4 steps ahead, but then we never got into the moral question of, what do Bjorn trying to take Eileen Wu, what's the character's name?
Navarro.
Navarro, thanks. Navarro off the ship, or the fact that when Kay gets taken, that they, there's nothing that they can do about it. And I think Rook counsels him earlier on, right? He's like, human beings are weak. You got to be strong.
I mean, there's no ambiguity for me. They were all wrong, except for Andy. Every decision that they made was the wrong decision. I never felt like, oh man, come on, Andy, give them a break. Maybe because I know, like you said, I know what's going to happen. I know there's a bad thing waiting for you in 5 minutes. But I just said, no, him trying to get her off the ship was the height of stupidity and selfishness in that moment. Right. And,
but it really tells us who Bjorn is, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. It was totally, fair to the character. But it wasn't, there was no ambiguity for me in deciding that, the decisions that they were making were all the wrong decisions.
Cool. Well, let's start to wrap up. And I thought it might be kind of fun to rank the character deaths and see if we can kind of come up with a collective of the death scenes in this. The on-screen order was Navarro, Bjorn, Tyler, Rook, Kay, and then Big Baby. So where would we put Navarro's death? To me, it was pretty like it's a chest burster. I thought the cool part of it was the wand, but it was average.
Well, I mean, for me, because of that, I was going to put it at number 1.
Oh, really? It's a number 1 for you? Okay.
I mean, it was just like the coolest visually, but yeah.
Right. Jean, Ron, thoughts on Navarro's death?
Yeah, I mean, I would rank it high because it is the iconic death scene for an alien movie.
Yeah, so Navarro had the chest burster. Bjorn got dripped on.
Right.
Tyler got stabbed and then lifted up and away. Rook died in the space station crash. And Kay died by being vampired, nursed to death, I guess. And then alien baby fell out the bottom of the ship.
Right.
For me, Bjorn's death was number 1.
Which
I just thought that was cool. That's where that's the where the acid was dripping on him from the cocoon above, and he was watching it on his hands and on his chest.
For me, the number 1 death was Kay, because that big ass baby doing that vampire shit, that was mind boggling. I'm like, it's still, to me, I'm still flabbergasted by this.
It was the creepiest, that's for sure.
It was absolutely creepy, and I want to know why. I everything else made sense. Everything else I kind of expected. I would go with Bjorn as number 2 because I felt like it was so deliberate by the alien. Like, yeah, you're gonna die, and I'm gonna watch you die, and this is how you're gonna die, and I'm gonna make it happen.
That's right, because he got dripped on.
Yeah,
but he got stabbed in the eye first, right?
Yeah,
and then he got dripped on. Yeah.
So it felt like the alien was making a decision to kill instead of acting on instinct.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
To murder, not even, to propagate species. This was just murder. Just going to kill you. And
they never seemed to.
Well, it's because you stuck an electric rod up my backside.
So now you got to pay the price for that, homie. You're going to get it. And I felt that was a cool way of having, the xenomorph, take control. You know what I mean? Instead of just be a mindless one-trick pony. Like, this is the only reason I'm doing this is to, make sure that you get implanted with an egg. No, the only reason I'm doing this is for vengeance. And that was cool. I love that.
Cool.
So those were my top 2 deaths.
Right. I think Rook and the alien baby, like, they're kind of, I don't know. Did anybody like the alien baby's death? It just seemed...
I like the alien baby dying.
Well, if we're to take anything from the opening, because aren't we supposed to assume, and then the opening prologue, they're finding a needle in a haystack, and they're finding the original alien that was ejected.
Yes.
And and
I think so. Yeah,
pulling it in.
Yeah.
That's actually a good question. We had a piece of feedback from Joe on the contact forum. It says Alien Romulus. Rook explains that the Nostromo was lost with all hands except for one. If this takes place before the second film, how does the corporation know that Ripley is still alive and floating in space? Great film, otherwise, they say. So yeah, there's a question of like, how did they know and how did they send the probe? How did they know to look for the alien?
I don't think they did know that Ripley was still in space.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Romulus...
No, I think you're right.
Yeah, Romulus doesn't suggest that they know anything about Ripley. It suggests that they knew that the alien was there.
Yes.
So how you would... First of all, the fact that I saw that explosion, that was a pretty comprehensive explosion. The fact that there's anything left, let alone something that has paint on the side where you can actually see the words Nostromo written. But you know, I won't nitpick over that. Sure, you have floating debris.
Hey, future materials, you know, they are very durable.
Yeah. But then being able to find, because she blows up the Nostromo, flies away. Who knows how far she flies? And then she discovers that the alien is still with her. And so, I mean, that's not even a needle in a haystack. That's like an atom in a universe, really.
And so, did you guys take away that cocoon thing was the drone that Ripley kicked out of the shuttlecraft?
Yes.
Yeah. And got burned, but didn't get burned up enough.
Destroyed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't destroyed.
Oh, that's right. Because she blew it out the goddamn airlock.
We'll go step by step and cut off every bulkhead and every vent until we have it cornered, and then we'll blow it the fuck out into space. Is that acceptable to you?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So then that's the question is how did they know? Yeah, there's some questions there. I'm going to have to go back and see the film. That's a good question, Joe. Thanks. I just kind of accepted it, right? I was like,
I did. It's like headcanon. Let's keep it moving.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting if Noah Hawley's Alien Earth deals with the Weyland Yanti company at all. Because
it's got to, right?
It has to.
Yeah.
Right.
That has to be the premise of the series.
Because there's very little out right now about it.
How do they come into contact with the xenomorphs? What's their role? The entire thing has to be about that.
Yeah, that's what I'm anticipating too.
Right.
Yeah, because the company knew that the craft was there because they swapped out Ash a couple of days before the Nostromo left.
Right.
So it was all pre-planned for them to go get that thing. Cool. All right. So we've got some votes for Navarro, for Bjorn, and Kay. But it looks like Tyler's death is kind of, it's a little bit mundane, right? So, because he just gets stabbed and hoisted up.
I mean,
that's number 3 for me.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's cool.
Okay.
That's number 3.
All right.
I think the cool element about Rook's death is just like how he is, he's an android, obviously. And there are, as much as we talk about the question about their humanity, there are some fundamental differences. And for him, he's still, up until the last moment, he's trying to achieve his objective, even though he knows he's going down. He knows they're separated from them. He's like, what can I still do when I'm just like a melted head on a sinking ship?
Like a Terminator.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a good point. All right. Well, I don't think we have a consensus, so that's fine. We don't have to.
We have a consensus that the big baby is the funniest.
Right.
That big ass baby boy, I'm telling you, that is no joke. That is no joke. What? Imagine you see that big ass baby come for you. What?
Oh no, that was some creepy character design. Like I'm like,
Ron, how did you sit through that? I want to know.
It was weird.
It was weird.
Right on. All right. Movie power rankings. Ron, why don't you lead us off? What's your power ranking? Now you can include AVP doesn't count. And you can include or not include Prometheus and
Covenant. Yeah.
Covenant, as you wish.
Well, for me, I mean, I think Alien and Aliens are clearly the two top, but I feel like they're so different. It's hard to rank them. If I had to keep just one, for me, it's Aliens. But I think Alien has a bigger contribution to cinema history.
Yeah.
But for me, in terms of enjoyment and whatnot, Aliens is like, that's my go-to. So it would be Aliens and then Alien. For me, Romulus would be third for me.
Gotcha.
Fourth would probably be Prometheus. Fifth would be Covenant. And I don't acknowledge the other. They are apocryphal as far as I'm concerned.
Jean, where are you at?
I mean, I gotta say, Alien 3 pissed me off because Alien 3 opens with the two characters spoiler alert for Alien 3. It's not even a spoiler.
There's a full spoiler warning.
Everyone rips
it's
on
the
it.
opening. Yeah. You learn that Newt dies and that the Michael Biehn character are now dead. So it makes me feel like everything they went through in Aliens was for naught. So
agreed.
That straight up pissed me off. And then, Alien 4, gee whiz. Because that was Resurrection, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And Winona Ryder was in that one, right?
Yes, she was.
Yeah.
Yes, she was. Yes, she was.
She's having somewhat of a year too. Anyway, so those are my rankings.
Cool. I love Winona Ryder.
Jean?
Number one for me is Alien. That's I didn't see that in the movies, in the theater. I saw it much later in life. I saw Aliens in the theater.
Right.
That's one of the first movies that I remember my sister taking me to watch because I couldn't get in because I was underage. So she took me. Oh. And I remember being scared shitless in that movie theater. Like, just to this day, I still remember sitting in that theater with her, like grabbing her hand. It was insane. But Alien, I feel watching it on my TV, and I was afraid to turn off the lights and go to sleep.
Wow.
Yeah. That shit freaked me the hell out. It freaked me totally out. And I just felt like the movie itself, the mood of the movie, because I'm a sci-fi guy. I like my space travel. I like all of that. And that put into question everything. Like, do I really want to get on a spaceship? Do I want to get off of Earth? I don't know about this. I'm kind of wavering right now. So Alien would be number one for me. Aliens would be number two for me. Romulus and Prometheus. I like Prometheus a lot. I know
cool.
That's something that, folks have issues with the movie, and I have my issues with the movie too as well. But that's a movie that I tend to watch again when it's on.
Okay.
But I feel like this Alien movie, Alien Romulus, I will search for it instead of waiting for it to be on, if that makes sense. So it's going to go to number three for me by a whisker over Prometheus. Then, I would say the other three, it's hard to rank those three, man. It's the only reason I would say Resurrection is because my guy Rock, what's his name? Charles.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Why can't I remember his name? I will get his name, but he's in the movie, and I love him as an actor. So once it comes to me, I'll let you know. So I would place that ahead of the other three, the other two movies. And Resurrection and Covenant would share last place because there's no way you can pick one that's worse than the other. To me.
Elysia?
So I'm gonna put Alien in first place because it's got for me it's the most interesting in terms of the filmmaking and the ideas and the atmosphere and things like that. I'm actually going to have Romulus second.
What?
Wow.
Yeah. I thought.
Hot.
I mean, I know other people feel the same way. I'm definitely not alone in this.
Okay. There are dozens of us.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, okay. So I feel like I have to explain why I rank Aliens third because, so Aliens is an iconic movie and no problem with it at all. Like, it's a good movie.
Right. You're not knocking it because you're putting it in third. You're not naking it or anything. Yeah.
It just deviated so far from what I liked about the first one that to me, it felt like almost a different genre in the same world and a genre that I'm less interested in, which is more of that machismo action thing.
Yeah,
and whereas Romulus, it's in between in timeline. And for me, it was also, I really appreciate the way it pulled together different things. I thought that the directing, acting, characters were great. Not to say that it's a perfect movie. We've discussed that at length. But anyway, yeah. So those are top three. And then space. Give it plenty of space. We get to... I guess I would do Prometheus next because I don't like how it ended up, but there are interesting ideas in there. And then, you know what? I'm going to do Covenant right after that for the same reason, although it's even more poorly realized and felt like one of those, I hate when they do this, where they do a film and it's not received well. So they're like, oh, well, let's just like erase everything. Like, no, fix. Don't wipe out.
Right.
But I still think, at least there were interesting ideas in the prequels, and I saw the reason why they were made. I just don't necessarily appreciate the final product.
Yeah.
Whereas for 3 and 4, I can't really choose between those two. I think that they are. I don't know. They were pure cash grabs, and that's what it feels like. And they, to me, add the least to the franchise.
Got it.
Charles S. Dutton.
Okay.
That's the actor I was speaking of.
Gotcha.
Charles S. Dutton.
I am pretty much in line with you, Ron and Jean, with my top three. I will say, I'll just jump in really quick and say Alien 3. I appreciated what he was trying to do, but you could really tell that the studio was just fucking with him, and they came in hard on him, and they overrode so much of his script and what he was trying to do. So I feel badly for Alien 3. So that sits in 4 for me. But I'm Aliens, but only because of nostalgia as my number one film. Just because of that time and place and the people and everything that was going on in my life at that time, that movie just hit. But Alien is a cinematic masterpiece. It's such a great piece of storytelling and just did so much for the genre. So it's number 2, but it's tight, right? It's a tight connection. Romulus, absolutely number 3. Solid addition to the franchise. Actually, I think rehabilitates the franchise, where Resurrection just shat all over the franchise and just trashed it. I can't take Prometheus and Covenant at all seriously. I know people are into the deep ideas that Prometheus brings forward, but man, it was just such a poorly executed movie, and the characters, and I can't get to what the good stuff is in Prometheus because of what's on top of it, and it sort of drives me nuts.
Prometheus is the one where they don't know how to outrun a rolling donut, right?
Running sideways is something you learn if you live on Earth, I guess.
And the only person with any sort of common sense is Idris Elba, and nobody listens to him. He's like, "We gotta get the fuck out of here. Let's go." And
hey, that feels real.
It's true. That's true. And then I can't, we're not ranking AVP, but I have to say the 04, the first one was better than the second one. The whole thing with the way that they built around the cultures and all that stuff was really interesting, where 2 was just trash. The second one of them was just complete trash. So anyway,
I'm an Alien versus Predator apologist. I'm not saying they're good movies, but they are fun movies.
Did you like the second one?
I mean, I don't hate it. I'm like is a strong word.
I might see that. I haven't seen either of those yet. because they seem so bad. But AVP looks like it would be like a fun watch. Like, it's bad, but it may be kind of like fun, like you described.
Yeah,
it
like
fun.
Invite over some friends, have some drinks, make fun of it together. It's that kind of watch. Yeah,
it is fun. It's a fun movie. It's so silly, and it's but it does do some interesting things around the culture that that David is talking about.
The first one I enjoyed because I actually thought about it a little bit more and tried to build the world a little bit, whereas the second one just felt almost like a CW mix up or something like that, where there was just, I can't explain myself here. There's just some very simplistic storytelling elements that we see on television, and it just felt like they took a CW television show and threw it on the big screen.
I have to defend CW. It starts to irk me that people use it as synonymously.
Use it as our dumpster.
I think there are some good shows that did what they could with their budget. Not all of them are good, but that was a big part of my growing up.
Fair enough. I take the point.
CW, Black Lightning, thank you very much for that first season.
Cool. Ron, any final thoughts?
I wonder if one of the reasons why I like Aliens so much is because I saw it in the theater. This is going to date me. I saw it in the theater with, we went with a group of friends, but the person who specifically invited me was the girl that I liked in high school. At one point she grabbed my arm during a scary part. So I wonder if that didn't implant upon me.
There's definitely some neurological connection there. There's for sure.
And I always thought she kind of looked like Sigourney Weaver.
Oh, okay. All right.
So that was
a solid. Yeah, that's best.
Yeah.
Jean?
Yeah, just really enjoyable film.
Cool.
A really enjoyable film. So yeah, that's it.
Great. Elysia?
Bring on Alien Earth. I'm all about the prequel now. And this film was good to like get me psyched for that again. Because you're asking about franchise fatigue earlier, and I think it's the opposite, that this was like a nice kickstart, whereas before I was like, oh, but the last like 4 movies haven't been good. So now it's like, okay, no, I'm back in where we apparently care again about making these good. So I'm very curious to see what's coming next.
Well, let's look forward to Alien Earth and maybe reconvene this group of folks and we can talk about it. Depends on when they release it, because we've got a stacked schedule next year. We've got Last of Us, Andor, Severance, White Lotus, Foundation, Wheel of Time. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, so, we could at least do a one shot.
At least. Even if we did a weekly coverage, I'd still want to pull y'all in for a one shot to recap it. So.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Ron, good to see you. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me. I always appreciate it.
Yeah. Jean, Elysia?
Yeah.
Catch you on the DCU side.
And now I'm going to go watch Prey.
Perfect. Nice way to cap it. All right, everybody. See ya.
Peace out.
Well, okay. That was a pretty cool conversation. Hope you enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun, and it was great to talk to Jean and Ron and Elysia about, I think, one of our favorite franchises. So I've got a lot of programming notes, a lot happening with the Lorehounds right now through the end of the year, and we've got some exciting stuff going on. So if you're curious about what we've got coming up in the fall and out in the future, stick around through this. First up, I gotta remember to plug the blog. Brian8063, our editor-in-chief, has been bugging me. He's like, make sure people remember. If you are into writing, if you are into reading, we have a blog on our website. We have an open submission policy. Anybody can submit. If you go to thelorehounds.com and you go to the blog link, their first post in the blog listing is the submission guidelines. And you can get in touch with us and submit something, and we'll get it edited and put it up. So please, if that's something you're interested in doing, reach out to us. There's also a blog channel on our Discord, so you can hop in there, and Brian's monitoring that. And so remember that there is one more podcast in this series. This is going to be community reactions. I've talked to a number of our subscribers and hopefully a few other people I can rope in, giving their opinions and perspectives on Alien Romulus. That should be out in the next couple of weeks. The big news for us is our newest affiliate podcast, Never Mind the Music. It's Mark and Nicole. Mark's a music professor. Nicole is a psychology professor. They're friends, and they do this amazing podcast where they will take a song and they'll break it down, and they'll talk about topics around grief or identity formation and psychological traits, how that relates to the music and how the music relates to that. It is fascinating. It is exactly the kind of thing that the Lorehounds community, I think, really enjoys. The first 3 episodes are already out. You can go and subscribe. There's a link in the show notes below. The first 3 episodes are That's What You Get by Paramore and the Motivic Limbic System, if I'm pronouncing that right. The next one they have out is The Sign by Ace of Base and Young's Collective Parallel Minor. And episode number 3 is The Crossroads by Bone Thugs and Harmony and the 4 Rhythms of Grief. So podcasts are going to be coming out every week. So they cover a big range. You think, oh, well, that's not my style of music. Don't worry. They cover a wide range of music. It's a really super well-produced podcast. It's so interesting and deep. Please go subscribe, check them out. For regular coverage, the time of this recording, we are just about on episode 6 of The Rings of Power. So we're going to be finishing up that 8-episode run. Also starting this week is Agatha. Elysia and Jean are going to be covering that week to week. And then in November, Elysia is going to join me, and we're going to cover Dune Prophecy. And that's really exciting. Fingers crossed for that. In other comic-related news, the DCEU is dead. Long live the DCU and Elseworlds. Jean and Elysia have a new podcast they're starting up that's called Comics Versus. And they're going to be looking at comics and the DCU cinema universe and the Marvel cinema universe, and basically talking all things superheroes and comics. So that's a great new podcast to kick off that topic. And then The Penguin and Joker 2 are going to be getting some coverage. Not sure exactly how that's going to go yet, so stay tuned for more detail on those. For some community fun, we've got Spooktober coming up, and we're going to be covering all of the Poltergeist movies. We'll have some special bonus coverage for subscribers, and then we'll have some stuff out in the main feeds for everyone. We also have one-shots planned for Beetlejuice and Wicked, and I've got a couple of special projects in the works. One covering the 45th anniversary of Star Trek The Motion Picture, the 1979 that reboot the whole franchise. As well, it's the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm putting something together for that. Look for the Star Trek The Motion Picture podcast out in December. I'll have more news as we get closer to that. Not sure yet when the D&D 50th is going to drop, but I'm working on it. For subscribers, we just had a second breakfast and we talked about bagels, and it was a really great conversation. Stick around to the end of that podcast. There is a great little musical flourish that Mark from Never Mind the Music put together. It's really funny, and I love it so much. For Elevensies, our subscriber movie club, we just had V for Vendetta last month. And boy, did we go deep on that. It was really interesting. We had a lot of fun producing it too, dropped in a lot of sound clips. And this month we're doing Prey, which is one of the Predator films. So that's also very cool. Over on our affiliates, most everyone is taking a break right now, but Elysia is continuing Woolshift Dust, the book club, part 2 of the Dust book breakdown, and the last part of the final book in the Silo trilogy. That's coming out very soon. I think she's got that edited and she's getting it queued up. And over on the Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast, Alicia's got part 2 of Canon Folklore of the Old Republic. That's a discussion with Marilyn. Normally she's covering Tolkien content, but she's very deep into the Star Wars world. And so Elysia and her talk about Sith stories, even a werewolf story. Amazing. So lots going on. Stay tuned for more, but it's a pretty exciting time this fall. We've got some fun stuff planned for December as well. So as always, we like to shout out our boosters and subscribers. To our Discord server boosters, Gnarls, Aaron K, Tiller the Thriller, Dork of the Ninjas, Duve71, Captain Gingy 56, Athena Ajalea, Adrian, Tina, Lestu, Nancy M., and Ghost of Partition. Thanks so very much for supporting the community by giving us your Nitro bits so that we have a better server. And to our Lore Master subscribers, our top tier subscribers, we depend on you. You make our Lorehound community go round. We always like to give shout outs at the end of every podcast. So Samartian, Michael G, Michelle E, David W, Brian P, SC, Peter OH, Bettina W, Adam S, Nancy M, Duve71, Brian 8063, Frederick H, Sarah L, Gareth C, Eric F, Matthew M, Sarah M, DJ Miwa, Andra B, Kwong Yu, Deadeye Jedi Bob, Nathan T, Alex V, Aaron T, Sub-Zero, Aaron K, Dally V, Mothership 61, Gnarls, Kathy W, Lestu, Jeffrey B, Elysia U, Fossey U, Neil F, Ben B, Charlotte M, and forever last but never least, Adrian. Thank you all so very much. I don't think that my words can convey the depth of our gratitude. Thank you for your continued support. Thank you to everyone who listens. Thank you if you're a subscriber. Thank you if you are not a subscriber, but you listen. All of it's great, and we're just glad that you're here, and we will see you on the next one.